Good evening. Welcome to your town meeting. Town clerk has informed me that we have met the quorum of 50 people at last count, and so I declare the 2020 annual meeting is in session. I'm happy just as you are. To honor the work that our service members do every day for our country, our invocation will be read by Longmeadow resident Peter Maziarz. Peter graduated from Longmeadow High School and joined the Army National Guard in 2017. He currently works as one of the 2 engineering aides in Longmeadow Department of Public Works. In a recent deployment, he assisted with COVID-19 testing in Massachusetts nursing homes. Please direct your attention to Peter.
We have come together in civil assembly as a community in a tradition that is older than our Commonwealth itself. We come together to make decisions about our community. As we deliberate, let us advocate for our positions, but not at the expense of others. Let us remember that there's an immense gap between saying I'm right and saying I believe I am right, and that our neighbors with whom we disagree are good people with hopes and dreams as true and as high as ours. And let us always remember that, in the end, caring for each other in this community is of far greater importance than any difference we may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. So it's part of our town traditions, as I recently wrote in a brief commentary that'll be shared with the clerk for our records, that Longmeadow, even over 100 years ago in a time of pandemic, recognized that it is right and proper to care for and honor those in our community who are hurting, as well as those who are comforting, and sought to honor them. There are a wide variety of pains that we feel in our community, as in the world. Some of our community face double the traumas. So, for those who are willing and able, after you join us in a pledge of allegiance to the flag, please join me in a moment of silence to honor our fellow townspeople who are no longer with us, our veterans, and those who have helped us all, in particular during the COVID-19 pandemic and the many other challenges we face today. The teachers, grocery store clerks, caregivers and custodial staff, mail carriers and delivery people, those who look out for our health and public safety, and those who are striving to right the wrongs of the past to affirm and ensure that Black lives matter to us all, and to those engaged in promoting equality, liberty, and justice for all. The flag is to my right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under the visible, liberty, and justice for all. Thank you. The National Anthem, Star Spangled Banner, shall be performed by recent graduate Winton Jarvinen. That was excellent. Thank you, Winton. Really appreciate it. And many congratulations to you in graduating from high school in this very difficult year. Thank you so much. Town meeting is meeting in a practice field. What are we practicing? Democracy. I've got jokes all night, folks. I've been told there's penalties for piling on. I'll stop. We are here because it's safer to be outside than inside, and we're also here because we care about each other and our community. You and I, wrote Great Barrington native W.B. Du Bois, said we can never be satisfied with sitting down before a great human problem and saying nothing can be done. We must do something. That's the reason we are here on Earth. Therefore, to any first-time voters and to our visitors, I offer a special welcome. Thank you for doing the work of addressing the concerns Longmeadow faces together. One first-timer to Longmeadow's town meeting is Town Manager Lynn Simmons. Would you please join me in welcoming her to town meeting? She and the Emergency Management Director and many others on our logistics teams, a part of town and school departments, have helped to make this event happen. The event is also possible because nearly 30 residents are contributing their efforts in ushering and helping us maintain the rules that help keep us safe. Please join me in appreciating them for their time and efforts, and please follow their directions. Normally, I offer housekeeping rules about participation. I am dispensing with sharing those aloud and refer you instead to the last 2 pages of your warrant. If you have any questions about how things work, just ask. Some health and safety messages are mandatory, however. Should you need a hearing assistive device, inform a staff member wearing a vest, and we shall loan you one. A reminder that masks must be worn covering the nose and mouth unless you have a medical reason for it and are seated in the section for this. Masks may be removed for speaking. We have water bottles available and misting and cooling tents. I thank you for following the guidelines in assembling, and will note and remind you that at the dissolution of the meeting, we will have an orderly dismissal section by section. And I do have this very important town meeting weather message. The weather is being monitored by emergency management in the command station to my left, the white tent. In the case of weather that would require us to temporarily suspend the meeting, we ask the following. All participants should go to their cars or into the high school. You may wait in the hallways or cafeteria. We ask that you continue to wear your masks and be physically distant 6 to 10 feet. Please take your voter cards with you. When the weather has cleared, we will direct you back to your seat. If the weather is such that we cannot continue the meeting, we will advise you. I offer one more reminder that if you have to go into the restroom inside the high school, bring your voter card. If you don't have your voter card when you go into the room, into the high school, you won't be allowed to come back out, I should say. I now recognize Tom Lacusa, the chair of our select board, for some awards. Mr. Lacusa.
Thank you, Rebecca. We have 2 quick awards. One is our standard plaque. It reads Town of Longmeadow 2020 Select Board Citizen of the Year Award. And I'll announce the name after I read the letter. We'll keep a little suspense here. And so this is a letter sent by Michael Callan. Members of the board, please accept this letter as my nomination of my friend and former law partner, David Martel, for Longmeadow Citizen of the Year. Dave has been a Longmeadow resident for nearly 50 years. He has a diverse and distinguished history of public service. Dave was Longmeadow's town council from 1979 through 2015. Over 25 years ago, he was actively involved in the effort to lay out and form the community gardens on a parcel of conservation land in the south end of town. He is a longtime member and past president of the Hampden County Bar Association. Dave was appointed to the Chief Justice of the Massachusetts Trial Court, to a position on the Judicial Conduct Commission, and served 2 full terms. While in private practice, He devoted large amounts of time to performing pro bono legal work on behalf of indigent clients. He is a past president of Springfield Public Forum and a current active member. He was a longstanding board member for the Center of Human Development, which is now the largest social service agency in Western Massachusetts. Dave organized the lawyers and staff at Doherty, Wallace, Pillsbury, and Murphy to volunteer for the Springfield Public Schools Read Aloud program. He was often called upon to use all of his powers of persuasion to make sure that every school that needed a volunteer got one. He is the current chair of Longmeadow's Charter Revision Committee. In his spare time, he trained on the streets of Longmeadow and ran numerous marathons, including the New York City Marathon. Given Dave's exemplary life and public service, I can think of no person more worthy of this great honor. I hope that this letter has been useful to you as you deliberate upon this year's award. Yours truly, Michael Callan. Is Dave Martel here? If you could walk up, please, to the front. Go over there. There he is. Good. And in this presentation, it says, presented to Dave Martel for many years of outstanding service to the town and his residents, presented this 23rd day of June, 2020.
You certainly touched on a high spot.
All right. Thank you. And I'm sure most of you recognize Dave from many town meetings where he was presiding as our town council. The second is a plaque. The town of Longmeadow gratefully recognizes Marie Angelides for serving on the select board from 2011 through 2020. Thank you for many years of exceptional service to the town and its residents. Marie, would you please step up and take this? Yes, I'm all set, Rebecca. Thank you.
So before we get to Article 1, just a general reminder of what the procedures are for as we're walking through. This center, if you choose to speak, you can come up this center aisle here to one of these 3 microphones. Standing at the green microphone over here if you're in favor, yellow if you have a question or motion, and red for opposed to a motion. After you're done speaking, I ask that you go out those aisles and down each side aisle. We're trying to minimize any crossover and stay to the aisles, not walking through the blocks of chairs. So, Article 1.
Article 1.
Mr. Lacusa.
I move that the town vote to choose 3 trustees to administer the William Goldthwait bequest, and that these individuals be Francis Miffin, William McGurk, and Aaron Colber, to be chosen as trustees.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded. You may speak to it.
The Goldthwait bequest is an endowment fund left to the town of Longmeadow for assistance to the worthy poor of Longmeadow. The Board of Trustees administers this fund and makes expenditures from the accrued interest for applicants experiencing financial hardship. The trustees are chosen annually by town meeting.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll come to a vote. This comes with a simple majority. Would all of you raise your orange cards for aye? All those in favor, raise your orange cards. Thank you. All those opposed, raise your orange cards. The motion passes unanimously. I'm ready for the next motion, Mr. Lacusa.
Okay, the next motion is a consent agenda, which is the first. It will consider Articles 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 in a grouping, unless town meeting decides to pull an article out of the consent agenda for separate discussion. So I move to approve Articles 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 as part of a consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. What I'm going to do is call for each of the articles. If anybody wishes to hold one separately, you can yell out hold. Article 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay? All those in favor of moving Articles 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 as part of a consent agenda, indicate so by raising your orange cards. Thank you. All those opposed? Thank you. The motion passes. Majority affirmative vote.
Article 8,
Hold on one second.
okay,
1 second.
I'll look over this.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, that saves us a great deal of time. Article 8, I move that the town vote to transfer from available funds in the treasury the sum of $1,460.92 for the purpose of paying bills of the prior year.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. You may speak to it.
Additional fiscal year 2019 invoices were presented to the town after the close of the fiscal year 2019 town financial records and after the November 5th, 2019 special town meetings. This appropriation will fund the town's prior year's obligation.
Okay, thank you. Recommendation from the Finance Committee? Do we have this, Mike? No, we can't hear you.
Here it is.
That's on there.
Finance Committee recommends Article 8.
We heard that one. Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll come to a vote. This requires a 4/5 vote. Would all those in favor please raise your orange cards? Thank you. All those opposed? The motion passes by declaration 4/5 majority vote. Mr. Starr, name and address, please. It's on. Microphone, please.
Test. Yo!
Whoa,
It's on.
it's on.
You don't need to stand that close. Okay. Larry Starr, 81 Williamsburg Drive, Long Meadow. We have additional consent agenda items. The first additional consent agenda items would be, I move that items 9, 10, 11, and 12 of the warrant be handled in a consent agenda with reading of the individual items waived and subject to town meeting pulling any of these articles out of the consent agenda for separate discussion.
Is there a second? The motion has been made and seconded. What I will do is call each article number out, and if there's any you wish to hold for further discussion, then we will hold that one for further discussion. Article 9. Article 9 is held. Article 10, hold. Article 11, Article 12. So Articles 11 and 12 are part of the consent agenda. We will vote on Articles 11 and 12 at this point, and then we will take up Article 9. So to be clear, we are voting on a consent agenda for Articles 11 and 12. These require a simple majority. All those in favor of the consent agenda for Articles 11 and 12, please raise your orange cards. Thank you. All those opposed, please raise your orange cards. Thank you. The consent agenda passes for Articles 11 and 12. We shall now turn to Article 9.
I move that the town of Long Meadow vote to transfer from available funds in the treasury the sum of $100,000 for the purpose of producing preliminary survey and design work for the possible reconstruction, reconfiguration of Long Meadow Street, Route 5.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded. You may speak to it.
In order to be considered for state funding for reconstruction, reconfiguration of Long Meadow Street, Route 5, the town must prepare preliminary survey and design work. This appropriation is the second $100,000 request of an estimated total of $400,000 engineering project would allow the town to satisfy that requirement.
Okay, thank you. Recommendation from the Finance Committee?
Finance Committee recommends Article 9.
Okay, the floor is open for discussion. Sir, please state your name and address.
I'm Lieutenant Colonel John Friedson, U.S. Army retired, 9 Green Willow Drive in Long Meadow. Now, I'm kind of a newcomer here. I've only been here about 24 years, but I'm no longer part of the newcomers group. My favorite wish of the next 24 years is first staying above ground, and secondly, keeping my home in Long Meadow. I'm finding this to be a very conflicted document in general, where on the one hand, we're terrified property values are going to collapse, and we want to ask the state permission to raise the tax rates years in advance. And in the second, we seem to have an appetite for spending money in every possible direction. Now, this town seems to forget, number one, that we've got the highest tax rate already in the state. That's a fact, by the way, because I checked that today. That is true. Secondly, that we have seniors here on fixed or relatively fixed incomes. Believe it or not, I know it's hard to believe looking at me, but I'm a senior. Those of us who would like to keep our homes are getting increasingly concerned about the appetite for spending, the appetite for debt, for increasing taxes at every possible stage, it appears, and not necessarily casting a strong judicious eye on what the requests for expenditure are in a time of economic collapse and pandemic.
You have 1 more minute.
That'll be plenty. This particular case, Route 5 functions. It's not perfect. And yeah, we'd like to get state money, but last I noticed from my checkbook, I get to pay state taxes too. Oh, by the way, federal, as well as the ones here in Long Meadow. This is not the year, this is not the time for spending on things that are unnecessary, in my opinion. This is a town that shouldn't be on a beer budget, but guess what? We shouldn't be on imported champagne. We need to stick with domestic. Therefore, I'm against this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we shall come, if you can cut down on the clapping, that'll keep us moving. Thank you so much. So all those this requires a simple majority. All those in favor of the motion under Article 9, please raise your orange cards. Thank you. All those opposed to the motion under Article 9, raise your orange cards. The motion fails, majority negative vote. So there's 3 things that we need in town meeting. We need voters, we need a moderator, and we need a clerk. And while we wait for our clerk to return, we're just going to have a brief recess. Take a drink of water or something. Hold on 1 moment. That's okay. We now come to Article 10.
I move that the town vote to transfer from available funds in the treasury the sum of $7,975 to the town's operational stabilization fund, previously established by vote of Article 15 at the November 18, 2003 special town meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded. You may speak to it.
This transfer to the town's Operations Stabilization Fund is to comply with the Select Board's policy to transfer any remaining fiscal year's free cash at year's end to the Operational Stabilization Fund.
Recommendation from the Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommends Article 10.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll come to a vote. This requires a simple majority. All those in favor of the motion under Article 10, please raise your orange cards. Thank you. All those opposed to the motion under Article 10, raise your orange cards. Thank you. The motion passes, majority affirmative vote. We now come to Article 13. Mr. Gold?
Thank you. Bear with us so we understand that the state law requires that we read the numbers. So, I move the town vote to fix the fiscal year 2021 salary and compensation of the moderator at $100 and the select persons at $2,000 each, to provide for a reserve fund and to approve the fiscal year 2021 operating budget totaling $72,249,165 and itemized as follows. The general government, $1,690,055. Public safety, $5,599,821. Planning and community development, $190,870. Schools, $36,027,268. Department of Public Works General Fund, $3,174,630. Community and Cultural Services, $1,668,985. Debt service and town school employee and retiree benefits, $16,509,626 for a subtotal of general fund of $64,861,255. Additionally, solid waste recycling enterprise fund, $1,379,779. Water enterprise fund, $2,952,778. Sewer Enterprise Fund, $2,165,663, and Stormwater Enterprise Fund, $889,690, for a total of $72,249,165. And to fund the general fund, $64,861,255 to be raised and appropriated as follows: $64,861,255 from general taxation, and to fund the Solid Waste Recycling Enterprise Fund, $1,379,779 to be raised and appropriated as follows: $320,000 from solid waste recycling receipts and $1,059,779 from general taxation. And to fund the water enterprise, $2,952,778 to be raised and appropriated as follows: $2,952,778 from water receipts, and to fund the Sewer Enterprise Fund, $2,165,663 to be raised and appropriated as follows: $2,165,663 from sewer receipts, and to fund the Stormwater Enterprise Fund, $889,690 to be raised and appropriated as follows: $378,120 from stormwater receipts and $511,570 from general taxation.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. The Finance Committee has, oh, I'm sorry, you may speak to it, Mr. Gold, and then we'll have Finance Committee.
Fine. This is the annual operating budget, and it must be adopted by town meeting to fund the fiscal year 2021 that begins on July 1st of 2020. The budget was originally approved by the Select Board in March, reviewed by the Finance Committee as required by town charter. This motion will include the board's amended May budget and the school committee budget, and the school committee as voted by the school committee in February, and it will be proposed in the upcoming amendment. It's actually a reduction from this original budget as proposed from the Select Board.
Thank you. The Finance Committee, do you want to do off the recommendation afterwards? Okay. Yes, sir? Name and address?
My name is Steve Kennedy. I live on 11 Western Drive in Long Meadow and have for the last 24 years. This article is always very puzzling to me because on these huge numbers, there's one number that I'm concerned about right here, and that is the first number that we have been given. So I would like to move that the moderator's salary for fiscal year 2021 be fixed at $1,000 rather than $100. I would like a second for that.
Second.
I'll call the order on that, thanks. Why did you do this to me? Okay, so you're in line to make a motion. You're making a motion
Correct.
to amend. One moment, please. Okay, so the motion is to amend the salary of the moderator to, what was it?
To fix the fiscal year 2021 salary and compensation for the moderator at $1,000. The rest of the article.
Is this in writing?
It is. It's entirely taken from the website.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, the motion has been made and seconded. You may speak to it, sir.
I'm bringing this to town meeting's attention simply because over the years, town moderators have put an inordinate amount of time and effort into organizing town meetings. This year has been an especially challenging one, and I feel $100 is simply not what I want to give to the moderator as a token of my appreciation. I feel $1,000 might be better.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Further discussion on the amendment, sir? Okay, there's a further discussion coming along. Just remind you to walk up the center aisle. Go ahead.
Can I speak in this mic?
For questions and motions, yes.
I'm in
For
opposition.
then go over there.
Madam Moderator, I'm opposed to this
Name and
motion.
address, sir, please.
Michael Calick, former moderator of the town of Long Meadow, 458 William Street.
Thank you.
I'm opposed to this motion. You never get into this job for the money. You got this job because you want to do the job as a public service, and that's it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll come directly to a vote on this first amendment. All those in favor of the motion to amend, please raise your orange cards. Thank you. All those opposed, please raise your orange cards. Thank you. The motion passes, majority affirmative vote. We now return to the discussion of the article as amended. Mr. Gold?
Yes, I'd like to move to amend the fiscal years 2021 budget that was originally raised in the main motion, and I will incorporate the amendment that just passed. I will move it to read that the town vote to fix the fiscal year 2021 salary and compensation of the moderator at $1,000 and the select persons at $2,000 each, to provide for reserve fund and to approve the fiscal year 2021 operating budget totaling $71,899,165 and itemized as follows. General government, $1,690,055. Public safety, $5,599,821. Planning and community development, $190,870. Schools, $36,677,268. Department of Public Works General Fund, $3,174,000.
Mr. Gold, hold on a second. Could you reread the school line item, please?
Schools, $35,677,268. Department of Public Works, $3,174,630. Community and Cultural Services, $1,668,985. Debt service and town school employee retiree benefits, $16,509,626, for a subtotal general fund of $64,511,255. Solid Waste Recycling Enterprise Fund, $1,379,779. Water Enterprise Fund, $2,952,778. Sewer Enterprise Fund, $2,165,663. Stormwater Enterprise Fund, $889,690, for a total of $71,899,165. And to fund the general fund, $64,511,255 to be raised and appropriated as follows. $64,511,255 from general taxation, and to fund the Solid Waste Recycling Enterprise Fund, $1,379,779 to be raised and appropriated as follows. $320,000 from solid waste recycling receipts and $1,059,779 from general taxation. And to fund the water enterprise, $2,952,778 to be raised and appropriated as follows. $2,952,778 from water receipts, and to fund the sewer enterprise fund, $2,165,663 to be raised and appropriated as follows. $2,165,663 from sewer receipts, and to fund the stormwater enterprise fund, $889,690 to be raised and appropriated as follows. $378,120 from stormwater receipts, and $511,570 from general taxation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. You may speak to it, Mr. Gold.
Yes, this amendment reflects the school committee's revised budget vote as voted in June. It is $350,000 less than what was read in the main motion and reflects the projected loss in town revenues as a result of the coronavirus.
Thank you. Finance Committee recommendation?
Finance Committee recommends Article 13 as amended.
Thank you. Discussion.
Colonel Freitzen, 9 Green Willow. Just one quick question. On the debt service and employee retiree benefits of $16.5 million, even if it's approximate, how much of that is debt service?
Let's see. Could I ask Paul Pasturzik or Lynn Simmons to address that? And Mr. Friedson, if you have multiple questions, ask them all at once. Okay, that's just the one. Okay. And phone number, we need to get Andrew Lamb a desk.
Can you hear me? 5.619 million.
Is the debt. Okay, let debt load. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, what, can you wait, just wait. Thanks. Okay, seeing no further discussion on Article 13, the amendment under Article 13, we shall come to a vote on the amendment to Article 13. So we're not voting on the total budget yet, we're voting on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment under Article 13, please raise your orange cards. Thank you. All those opposed, raise your orange cards. Thank you. The amendment passes by majority affirmative vote. We shall now come to discussion of the discussion on the article as amended. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we shall come to a vote on the article as amended. All those in favor of the article, please raise your orange cards. Thank you. All those opposed, raise your orange cards. Thank you. The motion passes. Majority affirmative vote.
Madam Moderator, my name is Michelle Morantz, and I live at 117 Rugby Road. I move to advance Articles 33, 34, and 35 to be considered now.
Okay, this motion requires, is there a second? The motion is to advance Articles 33, 34, and 35 to now. Ms. Morantz, did you want to speak to this motion? No? Any further discussion on this motion? This requires a 2/3 majority to advance an article. All those in favor of moving to discussion of moving Articles 33, 34, and 35 to now, please raise your orange cards. Thank you. All those opposed, please raise your orange cards. The motion fails. By declaration. We shall now come to Article 14. I'm sorry? Yep. Mr. Gold?
Thank you. I move that the town of Long Meadow vote to petition the General Court of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to permit the town, subject to approval at a townwide referendum vote, to exempt the town of Long Meadow from the requirements of paragraphs B, D, and E of Section 21C of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 59, by adding paragraph F as follows. F, the local appropriating authority of any city or town may, by 2/3 vote, seek voter approval at a regular or special election to accept this paragraph F, thereby rejecting the limits set forth in paragraph B and not be subject to it, provided, however, that the question submitted shall be as follows. Quote, shall the town of Long Meadow adopt paragraph F of MGL Chapter 59, Section 21C, thereby rejecting the 2.5% of assessed market value tax ceiling limit set forth in paragraph B of MGL Chapter 59, Section 21C, yes or no, end quote, and provided further that said question shall be deemed approved if a majority of the persons voting thereon shall vote yes, or in other ways modify Chapter 59, Section 21C to reflect this local exemption from the 2.5% of assessed market value tax ceiling limit.
Mr. Gold, did you mean affect or reflect?
Affect, I'm sorry, to affect this local exemption. I apologize.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. You may speak to it, Mr. Gold.
This warrant article allows the town to request from the Massachusetts legislature the option to allow towns to waive the tax ceiling imposed by Proposition 2.5 if property values drop to a level that would cause the local tax rate to exceed the current maximum allowable rate. Such a decline in property values would not allow the town budget to sustain services in Long Meadow. Even if this requested legislation is enacted, the town of Long Meadow would have to accept the option by voting yes at both a town meeting by 2/3 vote and a referendum ballot of the townwide election. Long Meadow is requiring that the town be allowed, Long Meadow is requesting that the town be allowed an option to, while retaining the 2.5% annual cap and year-to-year increases, not tie our taxes to a valuation limitation. Long Meadow, along with other small towns in western Massachusetts, are handicapped by this section of the law compared to towns in the eastern part of the state because of the smaller increases in property values since the 1990 adoption of Proposition 2.5. Town leaders are concerned that a decline in property values resulting from the COVID-19 induced fiscal crisis will, within a few years, reduce property values to a level that will require a drastic decrease in the town budget, requiring severe cuts in services to be forced upon us in both the school and town portions of the budget. This proposed legislation does not allow taxes to change differently from how they are now controlled. Residents vote each year to increase the budget by no more than 2.5% over the prior townwide tax levy. This annual vote puts the power of how much taxes are levied in the hands of the residents. In the past few years, the town of Long Meadow has not raised taxes the full 2.5% allowed by law, to avoid the problem of hitting the tax ceiling of $25 per thousand of value. If property values decline as they did during the 2009 to 2011 recession, no level of prudent budgeting would enable the town to avoid the fiscal crisis that would result. This legislative relief option is a tool that town leaders believe is necessary to allow the town to retain the level of services expected by our residents. Due to the length of the legislative process, especially in these difficult times, our expected timeline is to bring this option back before town meeting in 2 to 3 years for adoption of this local option. The residents would still be required to adopt this budget at a townwide referendum and can always say no to a budget that moves beyond the cap when the budget is presented for voter approval at the annual town meeting. This is not a vote on taxes. This is a vote on raising the tax rate ceiling.
Thank you. Before we get to the Finance Committee recommendation, I just want to urge those of you who are standing in line to try to stand on the pathway, if possible, and maintain the 6 to 10 feet of distance. Mr. Garrett, Finance Committee recommendation, please.
Finance Committee recommends Article 14. In making this recommendation, it's important to the Finance Committee for the residents of Long Meadow to know that the Finance Committee did not reach this decision lightly, nor was the decision unanimous. This article was the subject of long and vigorous discussion taking place over multiple weeks and multiple meetings. The members of the Finance Committee all have numerous concerns and reservations about this measure, which were discussed at length. However, at the conclusion of our deliberations, it was ultimately decided by the majority of the Finance Committee members that beginning the process towards home rule and self-determination by approving Article 14 was in the best interest of the town, as it would leave all of the town's options open. Residents of Long Meadow should keep in mind that regardless of your immediate personal feelings about this step, that this is only the beginning of a long and complex process that may take several years to conclude. Even if Article 14 passes, this will have no immediate impact on taxes or tax rates. The measure would then have to be presented to the full Massachusetts State Legislature as a request to allow Long Meadow to vote on home rule power with respect to the levy limit, essentially an exemption from the current state law. Then, even if the legislature were to take this matter up, grant Long Meadow the exception, then the issue would return to the voters of Long Meadow as a ballot measure. Only if the residents of the town then vote to approve the ballot measure would the home rule go into effect. Approving this article at this time simply keeps the option open. What this measure would do, if it were ultimately to clear all of these hurdles, is to allow Long Meadow to exceed the current levy cap of $25 per thousand under Massachusetts law, which has commonly been referred to in recent years as the tax ceiling or fiscal cliff. Until all of the aforementioned steps occur, the tax ceiling remains in place. If Long Meadow crosses the fiscal cliff, the town will not be able to increase taxes further. This will then necessitate significant cuts in services and programs, as well as potential layoffs each year. Accordingly, this issue and all the related steps represent a referendum, possibly one of the most significant that the town will face in its long history. The residents of Long Meadow are faced with a heavy choice that will dramatically affect the future of this town. Residents must decide what their greatest priority is with regard to how Long Meadow determines its budgets going forward. If the people of Long Meadow want the town to prioritize providing the same level of services that we now enjoy, with regular improvements and enhancements of the services, programs, and facilities, along the lines of what the town currently provides, then this home rule provision is an inevitable necessity, and residents should vote to approve this article. On the other hand, if the people of this town wish to prioritize limits on tax growth and fiscal restraint, with efforts to avoid any increases in our taxes beyond what is absolutely essential, even at the cost of reductions in town services, town employees, programs, and so on, then residents should vote against this measure. Among the gravest concerns of the Finance Committee with regard to this measure is that once the town is no longer constrained by the limits imposed by a tax ceiling, there will be little motivation for future town leaders to exercise fiscal restraint, which could lead to rapidly increasing taxes. We recognize that Longmeadow has a large segment of its residents who are retired and/or living on fixed incomes that are especially susceptible to significant tax increases, as well as families on tight budgets who must work hard to afford the already significant taxes in the town. The Finance Committee believes that it is important to continue to strive to protect the affordability of the town. The Finance Committee has discussed at length that if this measure were to pass, that we, in conjunction with the Select Board, School Committee, and all the other boards, committees, and departments of the town would need to engage in continued efforts to vigilantly control spending and tailor the budget tightly to maintain services that reflect the true needs of the town. If this article were to pass, the Finance Committee would immediately begin to discuss what policy measures should be put in place to create guidelines that would protect town residents from runaway taxation while still maintaining current levels of service. In reaching this recommendation, the Finance Committee recognized that many factors affecting our budget are beyond our control or are difficult to control, such as real estate values, state aid, mandatory spending, contractual increases in employees' salaries, health insurance, and pension costs. Moreover, although many different measures to increase town revenue or decrease expenses have been discussed, debated, and implemented over the last several years, there is no compelling measure that is likely to prevent Longmeadow from eventually breaching the fiscal cliff, unless the town is prepared to adopt significant reductions in expenses and services in the near term. The Finance Committee also noted that the current $25 per thousand limit established in the early 1980s was arbitrary and has not been adjusted for inflation or any other factors and is outdated. Residents of Longmeadow should also note that even if all the steps towards home rule were completed, the 2.5 per year limitation on tax increases would remain in place. Furthermore, even if this article were to pass, until all the steps towards home rule were completed, the fiscal cliff, $25 per thousand hard cap remains in place, and the Finance Committee will continue to stress the importance of setting tax rates consistent with keeping the fiscal cliff perpetually 10 years distant in the future. Ultimately, the members of the Finance Committee, among the members of the Finance Committee, there was a sense of faith in the people of Longmeadow and a belief in town meeting. The Finance Committee's recommendation of this article reflects what we view as a move towards the path of self-determination. Passing the article may allow future town meetings the flexibility to determine what their own tax rates and level of services should be. Rest assured that regardless of the outcome of this vote, we have great respect for the will of the people and will continue to advocate in the best interest of Longmeadow taxpayers now and in the future.
Thank you. Discussion under the floor. There's somebody at the red microphone. State your name and address, please.
Roger Wojcik, 29 Burns Meadow in Long Meadow. I'm a 60-year resident of the town, therefore I've seen a lot of activity come and go. The key words of the most recent speaker should be adhered to, and that's fiscal restraint. There's no question this town has money to spend for the essentials. We have an outstanding educational system. We have an outstanding public safety system. We have a number of other outstanding departments. We've been able to manage those within the 2.5% per year cap up to the present. I will suggest that if we put as many hours and as much effort into creating words and sense of direction for the town to operate within the 2.5% limitation currently in place, that we will do a fine job to cover the essentials. I've been retired for a number of years, as you might imagine. 60 years in town suggests that, and I didn't come here until I obtained a job. 60 years in town allows me to be able to say, we can do it, We need the constraint, we need the fiscal restraint to just simply knuckle down and get the essentials done well. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion at the green microphone. State your name and address, please.
Michael Back, 491 Laurel Street. A vote for Article 14 is a vote for the future of this town. It's a vote for people who are not here yet. It's a vote for the next kids in the Longmeadow Public Schools. It's a vote that could allow this town to be more accessible for the people who have not been able to enjoy the extraordinary community, the schools, the amenities that we have been able to bring. We do not need to shackle ourselves in the name of some kind of restraint. Everything that Longmeadow does is about going forward. It's about caring for each other. Every single year, the Longmeadow Music Department holds a fruit sale. A ridiculous amount of carrying boxes, a ridiculous amount of buying fruit. I don't know, I'm more of a fruit snacks guy. Because we care about the quality of services in this town. If we care about the qualities of service in this town, then surely we can allow our government to support that, to make the changes that are necessary. If a tax increase is too high, then we can vote it down. But we are denying a future to this town, denying what has made this town great. I am proud to have grown up here. I'm proud to have moved here because of the schools. It wasn't exactly my decision. I was 4, but
Sorry.
it was a good time. I understand the need for fiscal restraint. I understand the need for spending the money that we have carefully, especially in this ridiculous period. But I also trust our government. I trust the moderator, who we just gave a fantastic raise to. I trust the school committee. I trust the select board to manage that. The same way that I trusted you guys to buy fruit when I was trying to make sure that we could buy new microphones. I think that the people who will benefit most from raising this cap aren't here right now, and I'd like to try to speak for them as best I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir, at the red mic. Name and address, please.
Sure. Michael Diesso, 104 Crestview. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the Finance Committee. I'm sure that was a very difficult decision to come to, so I appreciate all your work on behalf of the citizens. So I've only been in Longmeadow now for 11 months, and I chose to live here because I wanted to protect the investment in my real estate. And what was underneath that really was a couple of things. One, we had great schools. It's a beautiful community. And although our taxes were high, they were controlled. And I felt like with those in place, my real estate investment would be protected. I honestly feel that if we remove this ceiling, as you call it, taxes will go up. They'll continue to go up, and we'll continue to have the highest tax rate in the Commonwealth. And I believe that as taxes go up, we're going to put at risk the people that that gentleman was just talking about, the seniors who have fixed or controlled incomes, the young families that want to take advantage of the beautiful schools that we have here. We're going to price them out. And as a result of that, the value of our properties will decline. So I think we should take a lesson from what we're all experiencing. This pandemic has taught all of us that there will be a new normal. We're not going back to the way it was. And we've all had to experience change. We had to experience change how we did our jobs. We had to experience change how our children were educated, how we took care of our seniors, right? And some of us probably lost jobs. Certainly, how we prioritized our spending had to change. I think now is the time for change. And I think our leadership should take this opportunity to force change. And I believe by leaving that cap in, we will force change. You know, I've run businesses for over 30 years. Every year you have to get better. You have to drive your costs down, take advantage of productivity, take advantage of technology. And we know just in the last 3 months, the technology that has emerged has been amazing.
20 seconds left.
Okay? So I think that now is the time to leave the cap in place and focus on productivity and focus on a new normal, which would be lower taxes while maintaining the services. I believe that's possible.
Thank you. The green mic?
Mark Gold, I live on 129 Avondale Road. I just wanted to clear up some misstatements or misconceptions about what this article is. First of all, We're talking about the tax rate. So I think everybody needs to understand, nobody sets the tax rate. The tax rate is calculated. It's calculated using two numbers. One number is the number that you just voted for in the last article, how much money we need to raise. The other article is what the total value is of our property in town. That's set by the State Department of Revenue after they review the property values and the sales in town. So nobody sets the tax rate. The tax rate is calculated. It's just a numerator divided by a denominator. And so when somebody says, well, if we keep this in place, it'll impose fiscal constraint, we could do nothing right now and exceed the tax rate next year. Now you say, well, that'll never happen. But a couple of years ago, in 2009, 10, 11, we had a decline in the property values in town. And by spending no additional money in town, that tax rate went up. Again, we didn't do anything different. It's outside forces beyond our control. Now you say, well, why is Longmeadow the town that's hitting this and no other town in the Commonwealth? The issue is that other towns in the Commonwealth have what's called new growth. They have vacant lots in town that they can build on, because although we can raise our taxes 2.5% a year, which we have not done, but although we can do that year after year on current values, a town like, I'll just pick Springfield, they can raise values on their current properties 2.5%, but all those new properties being developed, all those new houses being built in East Longmeadow or Hamden or Wilbraham, those are in addition to that 2.5%. So their community's payments or budget can increase more than 2.5%. So the call for constraint is, we're already constrained. We're constrained by the 2.5% limit. Year over year, we're constrained by no new growth. And in fact, whether we adopt this or not, that constraint is in effect. So I wanted to make sure people understood that A, there is a constraint in place, and that's not going anywhere, whether we get this home rule or not. And B, we don't set the tax rate. The tax rate is calculated for us based on what we just approved. So if you don't like what we're spending, you missed the opportunity 15 minutes ago when we voted on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, do you want to make a motion here, or, okay.
Alex Grant, Westmoreland Avenue, and I'm coming up because I have a factual question, which I think would really help the voters here. There's a part of our taxes that are already not subject to the $25 limit. These are the debt exclusions for the high school, the DPW, the senior center, all these debt exclusions. I think it'd be useful for everybody to know, if somebody up on the stage knows it, how much is already not subject to the limit, because that affects how soon we would actually hit the real $25 limit, which are the non-debt exclusion parts of the budget.
Thank you. Lynn Simmons or Paul Pasturzik, one of you could answer that, please?
Can you hear me?
Not yet.
Okay. $2.17 is for the debt exclusion. The full tax rate is $24.21.
Thank you. Yes, sir, at the red mic.
Hi, my name is Don Holland. I live at 43 Silverbridge Road. I've been in town for decades. I had a business in town for decades. One problem that I see with Article 14 is it doesn't set a percentage ceiling above the 2.5. So theoretically, the amounts could keep on going up to 6%, 7%, and drive people out of town that are on a fixed budget. I think that prudence would be to have a percentage that would be presented to the Massachusetts legislature in order to be something that I think all the residents can get behind. But when you're looking at open-ended, that's just an open check. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Do we need to start our name and address? Or?
Yes, please, name and address.
Nadine Buckley, 78 Leetwood Drive. So my question is my understanding from reading the article is that this was brought about because there was a concern that housing prices were going to go down as a result of COVID. So my question would be, hey, what was the percentage that we didn't collect on our quarterly real estate taxes? has there been a big dip or decline in housing sales? Has there been a big dip or decline in housing values? My understanding from COVID was that in fact people are coming from outside Boston and looking for houses more in a rural or residential area. So I'd like to know that.
Okay, so let me make sure I've got it right. The percentage of the quarterly, the housing sales and values.
Yep.
And again, Lynn Simmons or Paul Pasterzik?
As far as the collection rate, it has not dropped that much, maybe a couple hundredths of a percentage point. We normally collect about 99% of our taxes every year. We're in the 98.7 range. And actually, I forget the other questions.
Housing sales, housing values?
As far as I know, the valuations have held steady and have been up a little bit, according to the Warren Group. If I understood correctly what I read, they were up about 3% in value.
Does that address your questions?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. At the green microphone. Name and address, please.
Fred Rosenberg, 40 Grassy Gutter Road, Long Meadow. I moved here a long time ago for the schools. I was blessed with kids who were motivated and driven, and they went through the schools here. One ended up going to Smith, one ended up going to Williams, one ended up getting her master's in math. And my feeling is, yes, I pay taxes, but the taxes that I pay for the schools are an awful lot less than had I stayed where I lived before and had to send the kids to private schools. I think I got my money's worth. Thank you.
Thank you. At the red microphone, yes, sir?
Colonel Friedson, 9 Green Willow. Just a quick comment on housing values. According to Zillow, as of 2 days ago, over the past year, houses in this town have increased in value by 3.1%. And while Zillow is not the be-all and end-all of reliability, it's projecting an additional 3% increase over the next year. And I'll say a few quick things. First, my house, like the houses for many of us, is the single biggest liquid asset that I have. I'm sure those have large retirement accounts, but it's a big part of most of our portfolios. I certainly don't want to be somebody, particularly in a downturn, who might be trying to sell his house from the one town in the state that, oh, by the way, has managed to lift this cap. So that's number one. Number two, I get very concerned when I hear a financial argument that says because the cap of 2.5% was placed in 1980 and never raised, that means that nothing's increased. Now, a couple of things have increased. First, the house we purchased in 1980 is worth about double now what it was then. So 2.5% of now in dollars is double what 2.5% was then. So the amount of dollars being collected per house has indeed gone up. Secondly, taxes when I got here on this house, since from then till now, have gone up almost 3 times what they were. Now, I don't know about anybody else out there, but I'm not making 3 times as much money today as I made in 1980. I wish I was. But my taxes have gone up in that proportion. I have heard in other places the same argument: if we don't allow increase in taxes, God, everything's going to shut down, there won't be schools, there won't be police. I grew up in Westport, Connecticut, okay? Westport, Connecticut's like Long Meadow, except they spend money even more frivolously. The way to avoid getting into that situation is to not spend frivolously now and going forward. And there's still some other places in here we're going to talk about some of that and find other ways to raise revenue. But cracking open that door, lifting that ceiling, being, God knows, probably the one and only town in Massachusetts that would be in that position, that's now how I want to sell my house if there is a downturn. And if there is a downturn, you're right, I expect there's going to be belt tightening because I'm certainly going to have to tighten mine. Thank you.
At the yellow microphone.
Kevin Shea, 64 Warwick Street. I was wondering if the Finance Committee could just clarify some of the points made about whether there's going to still be a cap. My understanding is there will still be a 2.5% cap, and it would be great if we could clarify that if you vote affirmative on this motion.
Thank you. Mr. Garrett?
Again, there are two caps that we're dealing with. The first is the cap of $25 per thousand. That is the cap that we're talking about. That's the cap that this article refers to. Even if this article were to pass and it was approved in the legislature, sent back to Longmeadow and approved in the ballot measure, we still would be restricted by the 2.5% annual limitation on tax increase. Even with the current 2.5% limitation per year that we have in place, for the past several years, budgets have managed not to raise taxes all the way up to the 2.5% limit.
Thank you. At the green microphone.
Brian David Crawford, 5 Eunice Drive. I'm in favor of this on principle because setting caps on how much we can tax ourselves is not the state's responsibility. I come from California where there's a law called Prop 13. For those who are not familiar with it, I'd like to describe what it is. It limits how much we can be taxed based upon the year we purchase our house. Meaning if you bought your house in 1978, you were paying 1978 taxes on that house. That sounds great, doesn't it? It was designed to make sure the older people in the community can stay in their homes and are not priced out. If anyone knows anything about California, real estate is at a premium. The downside to this, public funding for schools and other things has dropped off a cliff. I was born the year after Prop 13 was passed. The quality of education I got was vastly inferior to the quality of education that kids got the year Prop 13 was passed. Now I'm gonna be honest, this town has a spending problem. We spend way more per capita than any other town around here. If we're gonna talk about raising this cap, we need to ask ourselves, why are we spending $198 per person on police when Wilbraham spends $170? We're talking about cutting full-day kindergarten because that's going to cost us an extra $300,000. If we only paid $170 per person on the police, that'd be $600,000 back in our budget. So if we want to raise these taxes, and we got a couple steps ahead of us, we need to stop taxing ourselves to the point where we got pissed off people up here. Thank you.
At the red mic.
Hi, Jessica Reyes, 548 Laurel Street. I want to speak against this not because I'm against taxing. I am all in favor of a robust government and taxation that enables us to do things for our community. However, when one uses words like home rule and self-determination, and when one thinks about what Prop 2.5 was supposed to do, to me this seems like just another part of the history of American preservation of advantage at the expense of disadvantage of others, of perpetuation of inequality, racial and economic, and of preserving this place so that other people don't have places like this. We should all be advocating for robust taxation at the state level, redistribution, and the hope that all children in the state of Massachusetts are able to enjoy schools as wonderful as the Longmeadow schools. The Longmeadow schools are not perfect. They need things as well. We spend a lot on our schools, and I think that is a great thing to do. However, I am not in favor of all of us sitting here in our lovely, wonderful, high-income community thinking about how we can preserve our property values, preserve our advantage, and keep it all for ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. At the green mic.
Stephen Morantz, 117 Rugby Road. I'm in favor of this Article 14, and I would encourage the community to view this as an insurance policy. if our property value is keeping up 3% a year, will never be enacted. But we've had homeowners up here and we've had businessmen up here. And I'm sure all of them have insurance on their house and have insurance on their business. This is an insurance policy. You heard the Finance Committee. The cap of $25 per thousand is a fiscal cliff. We go over the fiscal cliff, the bottom is not going to be pretty. We need an insurance policy. And it will take a couple years to have this happen between getting it through the state legislature, and then the town obviously has the final say in this. But this gives us the flexibility to say, oh my God, there's the fiscal cliff, we can avoid it. And as you all heard, Finance Committee again, we can't do better than 2.5%. This is not an open-ended, we're gonna raise taxes 6-10%. No, the most we can do is 2.5%. We haven't done that in the last bunch of years, and hopefully we won't do it in the next bunch of years. But given the nature of the world in 2020, I think an insurance policy on avoiding the fiscal cliff is the most responsible thing this town can do.
Thank you. Yes, at the red mic.
Good evening, Dave Lipke, 109 Wildwood Grove Lane. I'd like to thank the Finance Committee for your diligence on this very complicated and difficult subject. And while I understand the hope to preserve optionality, I think in fact that a vote in the affirmative for Article 14 will put Longmeadow down a path where we will have no hope but to go through the ceiling. Now, I've been in Longmeadow only 5 years. We have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old. My wife's family has been here for 3 generations. We hope nothing more than to ensure that Longmeadow is vibrant and prosperous 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 3 generations from now. But if I look at the house that I bought in 2014, it was actually worth less than when it was last sold in 2001. If you look at Zillow today, it's still about flat to 2001. So if you take my house just as one example, that means Longmeadow has had effectively no real estate growth for 2 decades. Now, Longmeadow has become incredibly successful as one of the premier bedroom communities of Springfield, but because Springfield has not grown in 2 decades, we can no longer continue to raise taxes without raising or changing a public policy perspective. So I would encourage everyone here to vote no to this and to encourage instead our selectmen and our finance committee to think more creatively and maybe more thoughtfully about how we can grow the economy here in Longmeadow. Now, you will hear that there are no properties to redevelop. I think that's frankly true. You will hear that all of our houses here can't be redeveloped. I think that is not true. So again, we would all, I think, like to preserve optionality. We would all like to preserve the schools of Longmeadow, but I would ask you to vote no and instead encourage some serious dialogue around growth. Thank you.
Thank you. At the green mic.
Larry Starr, 81 Williamsburg Drive. I actually think Proposition 2.5 was a phenomenal piece of legislation, but they got one thing wrong. They put in a dollar cap that was not subject to any cost of living adjustments or any simple way to modify it. It's a hard cap, written many years ago. If the cost of a loaf of bread when Proposition 2.5 was passed was 50 cents, but there was a hard cap on it that said you can never charge more than $1, over time, we would have gotten to the point where we would have no bread, because bread today is not less than $1. Okay, that's not something you can control. The hard cap was simply not thought well when it was originally passed. Let me just hold for the jet. Our elected leaders over the last number of years, and they're not the same people year by year. People talk about change. Look at the change in the people who are up there over the last number of years. They have worked enormously hard to produce the best results in this town, and they have kept the tax rate below the maximum that we're allowed to charge. The concern is down the road. Okay, this is advanced planning. Human beings are absolutely terrible at advanced planning. It's not our fault, it's biological. Comes from the fact that we were hunters and gatherers, and we're not good at long-term thinking because we have to worry about fight or flight. And that's what people are concerned about. I understand that. But what will happen is that at some point, when we get to the point that raising our taxes only 2.5% is prohibited by this hard arbitrary number, what will happen is that we at that point, as town members, will decide, our elected leaders will work on what we're going to cut. The vast majority of our money, sad to say, but there's nothing we can do about that, is people. Is it 90%, something like that? 80? 80% of our budget is people. When it comes time that we can no longer pay it, we will cut people, and you'll have to decide where that's going to be, whether it's in the schools or DPW. I suggest the first time that you don't get your road plowed, in the first day, and it takes 2 days, okay, you might think twice about what you've done if are not allowed to spend the money that is necessary to provide the services. We will get to vote every year on that amount of money. We will get to decide. And our town leaders have done a phenomenal job of not bringing up the numbers. And that's not because the cap was there. It's because they pay the taxes too, and they are not interested in paying more than we absolutely need to. So this is just getting things started. It's not committing to anything, but it's avoiding the potential way down the road that we might not be able to pay for the things that we want. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir, at the yellow mic.
Madam Moderator, Timothy Casey, 741 Laurel Street. I'd like to call the question.
Okay. Is there a second? The move to call the question is in order. We have had 6 in favor and 6 opposed. All those in favor of calling the question, this is not a vote on the article. This is about ending debate. All those in favor of ending debate, raise your orange cards. Thank you. All those opposed, raise your orange cards. Thank you. The motion to call the question passes by majority affirmative vote. We should now come to a vote on the article, the motion under the article. This requires a 2/3 majority vote. Would all those in favor raise your orange cards? Thank you. Would all those opposed raise your orange cards? The moderator is in doubt. We shall call a count by hand count. The way this will work, I will direct tellers who work in teams, and each team will count row by row. They will direct you to only raise your cards nice and high if you are voting in favor of the article. We are only counting yes votes at this time. We are not counting no votes. When they direct you at the end of the row to raise your cards if you're voting yes, and only lower them when they acknowledge you. So you'll see blocks. This is block 1, block 2, block 3, block 4, block 5. The people in the family blanket area, that's block 6. Way in the back, block 7. This up here is block 8. So there are tellers for each section, and they will go to their section and begin counting now. Yeah. So quick. Yes. I am in doubt. I am in doubt. If you are raising your cards, you must raise it high. What's that? Section number that you are counting. If you're ready, you can come to the front. Yep.
Section 1, for Article number 14, yes votes 17.
Thank you. Next section.
Section 6, front, yes votes 7.
Thank you.
Section 1, I know, whatever this section is, 8.
Thank you.
Section.
So just a correction, the first vote that was called was for section 2. Ms. Burrell?
Section 1, yes, 17.
You had 17 too. That's weird.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Winnick?
Article 14, Section 5, 11, yes.
Thank you. Ms. Welch?
Section 6, family blanket area east, 8, yes.
Thank you.
Section 8, 14 yes.
Thank you.
Section 7, 3 yes.
You?
Section 3, 37, yes.
Thank you.
Ready?
Yes.
Section 4, 24 yes.
Thank you. All the sections have been counted. Now we'll count the no votes for each section. So again, the same procedure for the no votes.
Way down?
No, I can check your.
Okay. Just, I'm coming out with a different total than Rebecca is. You got it? It is 138? Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, ready for no votes? Go ahead.
Section 8, 1 no.
Section 1, 13, no.
Section 6, front, 14, no.
Section 2, 15, no.
Section 519, no. Section 323, no.
Section 431, no. Section 7.2, no.
Hold on.
No, I only counted the 5 people sitting in section 7. I thought the 6 people got out of section 6. And somebody else is counting that one?
Nope.
Really?
It's gonna get a majority, but not two-thirds.
No, I thought they were part of section 6.
So the question is, with regard to the people who are sitting in their own chairs in the back where the counters are, Mrs. Welch, can you raise your hand? In that area, that's considered section 6 east. So they have not yet reported their count. So once you can count that gentleman if he's in that section? No, so you have to be within the bounds of the white lines. If you're kind of in the amorphous area, it causes difficulties for the counters. So the people who are in their own lawn chairs, not part of section 5, are counted as part of the back section of section 6. That section has not yet reported its numbers. So we are waiting on that section. They can recount that back section. I would ask that anybody who has already been counted to please be seated.
Or move around.
I appreciate everyone's patience as we finish the vote. Thank you so much.
That's what you get.
Jinxed us.
we had 3 lone people that kind of weren't in a group at all. So, yeah, so they're all set. We've added them to our group and we've got them accounted for, but it changed my yes count. She raised her card and she thought she was counted when they counted a row because she was in a line, but she was in a line outside of the parameters. And she didn't know that she was not. Okay. Okay.
No vote?
The no votes in the section 6 is, gotta put my glasses back on, 21.
Good, Andrew. Okay, so I declare failed.
Okay.
The motion fails, 138 to 139. Oh, no, yeah. Thank you all for your patience. Oh, wait, I didn't. The motion fails, 2/3 declaration. Mr. Starr?
Thank you. Larry Starr, 81 Williamsburg. I move that items 15 and 16 of the warrant be handled in a consent agenda with reading of the individual items waived and subject to town meeting pulling any of these articles out of consent agenda for separate discussion.
Is there a second? Second. Okay, the motion for a consent agenda to consider Articles 15 and 16 together. If there's a hold, just indicate hold on which article. Well, there's 2, so. Article 15, Article 16. Let's move to vote on these. All those in favor of approving Articles 15 and 16, please raise your orange cards. Thank you. All those opposed, please raise your orange cards. Thank you. The consent agenda for Articles 15 and 16 have been approved. Majority affirmative vote. Mr. Starr?
Larry Starr, in the last 5 minutes I moved, so I'm at a much less expensive house. I move that items 17, 18, and 19 of the warrant be handled in a consent agenda with reading of the individual items waived and subject to town meeting, pulling any of these articles out of the consent agenda for separate discussion. These items all require a 2/3 vote, positive vote for passage by town meeting.
Is there a second? Okay, the motion for Article 17, 18, and 19 to be handled in a consent agenda. I'll call out each number, call out hold if you want to consider it separately. 17, 18, 19. We shall vote then as a block. These require a 2/3 majority vote. All those in favor, please raise your orange cards. Thank you. All those opposed, raise your orange cards. The motion passes by majority, 2/3 declaration. Affirmative vote. Article 20. Yes.
Hi, my name is Danielle Littell. Considering it is nearing bedtime and Article 30 does pertain to families with children, young and old, I move to move that article forward.
Okay. To advance an article requires a 2/3 majority vote. That is Article 30 you requested?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Or I'm sorry, ma'am, did you want to speak to it?
Yes, I did. Did you?
You can just stand there, that's fine.
So as I said, my name is Danielle Littell. I live on 152 Burbank Road. During these unprecedented times, our children are socially and physically isolated, emotionally burdened. and
Oh,
in
I'm
des-
sorry, this is the motion for
okay,
advancing the
good.
article.
Okay,
Okay.
I just.
It is. So to clarify, a motion to advance an article is subject to debate.
Okay.
So if you want to speak on why we should advance the article, you can speak to that.
Well, I know that it is nearing bedtime for a lot of kids, and this article does pertain to the youth in our town. A lot of kids are in support of this and have done a lot of hard work, and I'd like to just move this forward so that we can vote yes or no, and then move on.
Okay? Any discussion on Article 30? Oh, okay. So we'll come to a vote. This requires a 2/3 majority to advance an article. All those in favor of moving to advance Article 30 to now, please raise your orange cards. Thank you. All those opposed, raise your orange cards. The motion to advance passes by majority declaration. Affirmative vote. We shall now come to Article 30. Mr. Strange?
I move that the town vote to fund the Community Preservation Project for a feasibility design study for a skate park and the amount of $15,000 to fund a study for the feasibility and design of a skate park to be funded from the Community Preservation Undesignated Fund Balance.
Is there a second? The motion has been made and seconded. Mr. Strange has deferred the main motion address to Mr. Grant. Mr. Grant, 4 minutes.
Thank you. Alex Grant, 54 Westmoreland Avenue. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here because the 3 fourth grade boys who pushed this forward and did all the work were not allowed to be here. The rules of this meeting don't allow non-voters to be here. So the fact that they're not here, do not take that as any indication of their lack of commitment, because they wanted to be here to make this case to you. They've gone a long ways. Last fall, they collected the signatures for the citizens petition, and it just barely did not pass. It barely failed. And the big objection at that time was that we hadn't gone through all the hoops. We hadn't conferred with everybody. We haven't gone through all the processes. And they did that. We met with Parks and Rec, and they were supportive. Barry Jarvis talked about using a skate park to generate revenue because we could do a summer camp and do programming through it. They went to the park board, got their support. And then they went to the Community Preservation Committee, and they're supporting it. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to tell you what this is. It's not for the skate park itself. It's to study and design it because we want to be careful. We want to do things right. And this is how the senior center got started, through a small amount of money that led to a study and led to a design. And that's why we've got a senior center being built right now. But what is a skate park? Skate park is really something that's about the size of a tennis court. It's not huge. This is not the Taj Mahal we're talking about. And it has certain jumps, objects in order to do tricks and things that I wouldn't even dare to do at my age. But the point is, it's very popular, okay? There are skate parks in Enfield, Agawam, Holyoke, Munson, even Little Munson has one, okay? So we can do this. This is nothing unprecedented here. And the other thing that I'll speak to, because the Finance Committee is recommending against it because they believe that it's a niche interest. I should note that all the process that we went through, they did not go through. They never asked to hear from us. We never even heard they had voted until they had voted. So when you consider their recommendation, I would ask you, did they do their due diligence? Did they meet with the park board? Did they meet with the community preservation committee? How did the folks there feel about it? But the point, though, is in this town, kids are already into biking and jumping. You know where they've been doing it? In Laurel Park. They've been building their own bike track. They've been making their own jumps. And 2 or 3 weeks ago, the town came in and destroyed it with a bobcat, okay? Now, they've got, that's their prerogative to destroy that thing. That's not part of any plan. But please, do not say that there is not interest when they go ahead and build their own bike track and their own jumps and all that sort of thing. And I can tell you, after the town destroyed it, I went walking back there. There were like 20 kids with rakes and stuff, and they were trying to rebuild it. That's the kind of interest that we're talking about for this project. And through this design and study process that we're just asking $15,000 of CPA funds that cannot be used for the general budget, cannot be used. They can only be used for projects like these. We're going to be able to answer every question you could possibly have about a skate park. We can look at what is the cost of building it exactly, what is it going to look like, and more importantly, where is it going to be located? And we're going to get input from all the stakeholders to find out what type of skate park the people want and how that's going to fit in with everything else that we're doing. But we can't do that until we study and design it any more than we could have done a senior center without studying and design it. So I would ask that you vote for this motion. There is the interest, and at a time when kids have to do their own play out there and you want to get them off the screens, this is what they should be doing.
Thank you. At the red mic? I'm sorry, the Finance Committee recommendation first, and then we'll get to the discussion.
The Finance Committee does not recommend Article 30. The Finance Committee voted against recommending this article for a number of reasons. First, the expenditure represented the first step in installing a new facility, the expense of which would far exceed the price of the study itself. Second, this would be a brand-new facility, which would incur a brand-new maintenance obligation and ongoing maintenance expenses, rather than the repair or improvement of an existing facility. Finally, the feeling of the majority of the members was that unlike the team sport facilities in town, this proposed skate park would represent a niche interest, serving a relatively small number of patrons, too small to justify the expense of installing the facility.
Thank you. Yes, sir?
Yeah, Steve Kennedy from 11 Western Drive. I think the Finance Committee has basically summed up exactly what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Yes, sir?
Larry Starr, 81 Williamsburg. I have a question, that's why I'm at this mic. And that is there any issue with regard to where the source of funds is coming from? I'm neither for or against it. I'm not speaking for or against it right here. $15,000 is not a tremendous amount of money, but the question is paying it out of CSA, has that been looked at as to whether or not it is an acceptable use of those funds? And who would review it if we do pass it? Is that up to the state to determine whether that's a proper use of those funds?
Let me ask if the chair of the Community Preservation Committee is here. There we go. Come on down.
Stephen Weiss, 25 Hilltop Road. I'm the chair of the CPC. This $15,000 would come from CPC funds. It came to us as a CPC application, so it would not be coming out of the general town budget.
Thank you. I'm not sure who is here first. Thank you so much for helping me out. Yes, ma'am.
Nadine Buckley, 78 Leetwood Drive. Question, when you were considering this and deciding to vote no against this proposition, was there any concern about legal liability? I mean, you know, with what would be happening with a skating park and the age group that would be involved in it. I'm just wondering if that was part of the consideration.
Mr. Garrett?
We did not discuss the legal liability implications of adding a skate park to Long Meadow in any substantial detail.
Is that mic on? A little louder, just try it.
Stephen Metz, 171 Coventry Lane, speaking in opposition. It was just brought up, the question I was going to bring up. We have been trying to avoid spending a lot of money in this town. $15,000 is coming out of the CPC, but that's only the tip into the iceberg. That will, the construction of the, first of all, they have to decide where to put it, and that's going to involve a lot of talk and conversation in this town. But more importantly, it's the ongoing cost of this thing, which includes not only the maintenance, which is going to further tax our DPW, which is already stretched the limit, but very significantly, it's going to increase significantly our legal liability. And that potential could be significant, even compared with the overall town budget. So I think that this is not a good idea to get, especially since it's going to serve only a very few, relatively only a very few citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. At the green mic, Yasmin?
Yes, again, Danielle Attell, Burbank Road. I think this is simply an article to push forward a design study. Once the study is produced, then we can decide if we're going to move forward with the construction of said skate park. But as a parent of 2 children in Long Meadow, these are unprecedented times, and our children are being socially and physically isolated. They're not with their friends. Sports are being limited, especially the close contact sports. And skate park is an individual sport. They will be allowed to get that much needed physical activity, being outside, not being with the tablets. My child has been stuck on his tablet the entire, from September to last Friday, doing remote learning. On the TV, playing video games. We need these things in Long Meadow. We have plenty of tennis courts. Not all kids swing a bat, kick a ball, or cradle a lacrosse stick. We need these alternative sports available to these kids. My son, he's 6 years old, shameless mom plug, he's a national BMX race championship, and every single one of his classmates have shown an interest in these alternative sports, whether it's BMX, skate, rollerblading, the little razor scooters. They've all shown an interest. He's encouraged his friends to get on a bike, get off the training wheels, get on the skateboard. There is an interest in this town, and I'm sorry if it doesn't fit our image of what Long Meadow is, but it's needed, and I just encourage you to vote yes on this article. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes?
Madam Moderator, the chairman's response to my question was not a response to my question at all. The question I asked, we know it's certified, we know it's community preservation money. The question is, and it's probably for town council, are there any restrictions on our ability to pay for this particular project out of what are called Community Preservation Act money? And who will review that? Is there any state oversight once we approve it to determine that it's appropriate? That was the question. We
Thank
know
you.
it's coming from this from the community property.
I'm going to address it to Mr. Weiss first, and then, go ahead, Mr. Weiss.
Again, Stephen Weiss. When we review all of the applications every year, one of our initial questions is, does it qualify? Applications for things such as, there are 4 categories. Recreation and open space are 2 of those. This clearly fit within the recreation rubric. Our process is that we decide whether it's eligible, and then we decide whether it should be approved. It then goes to the select board. It then goes to town council. We've heard no objections, no questions about whether it qualifies as this $15,000 qualifies under CPA funds. We think it fully qualifies under the statute.
Thank you. Yes? He's going to be cleaning the mic first. Thanks. Thank you.
I'm Chris Rich from 25 Arlington Road. I am a skate park mom. I drive to wherever I can to take my 16-year-old to skate, whether it be Agawam or Holyoke, or I have to drive to go find a spot for him to skate. Longmeadow does a fantastic job of supporting baseball players and soccer players and basketball and lacrosse, and you could argue that those are niches as well. And throughout town there are signs that say where you cannot skate. It would be awesome to have a spot that says this is where those of you that want to skate or ride your bikes or whatever can be done there could be. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead. Name and address, please.
I'm Matt Rich. I also live at 25 Arlington. I'd like to say what happens at a skate park. Skateboarding, biking, scootering, inline skating, running around, and just in general hanging out. In general, it's common to see between 10 to 50 or even more kids and adults at a skate park at any given time. My comments now are focused on skateboarding because my son skateboards and I see firsthand his growth and pride for his achievement. The act of skateboarding is a sport of learning new tricks and mastering difficult tricks with style. Skateboarders learn to glide on their boards. They learn to dance with their boards, spinning, jumping, and flipping. Skateboarding has physical, emotional, and community benefits. Physical benefits include skateboarding is a great cardio workout. Skaters gain amazing coordination. Great skateboarders are elite athletes. It is an activity that requires commitment to practice, like soccer or basketball. Emotional benefits include skateboard practice leads to the pride of achievement. They work hard to learn many difficult, different tricks. They make goals. They beam in amazement when they learn, when they smoothly land a trick and achieve their goals. Skateboarders are proud of themselves. Finally, community benefits. Skateboarders cheer each other on. They watch and help each other. They coach each other. They strengthen each other. An amazing thing happens, which I would love for everyone in this town to see at some point, when a skateboarder lands a difficult trick at a skate park. The entire skate park stops and applauds what that skateboarder has achieved. They knock their skateboards on the ground in applause. It is a truly strengthening experience for the community.
Thank you.
Finally, a skate park is not just for niche skateboarders. Skateboarding and team sports are not mutually exclusive. Kids and adults who play team sports and use the skate park will also enjoy the physical, emotional, and community benefits. Therefore, I ask for a vote in favor.
Thank you. Next.
Hi, I'm Margaret Rockus. I'm the current chair of the park board. Last fall, when this came up as a citizen's petition, we asked that it go through channels because when a citizen's petition is put forward, it may be very well planned, it may not. However, when something like this goes through, particularly CPC review, we feel very comfortable in supporting it. So first, we do support this skateboard petition to do a study for $15,000. We ask that people vote yes. I'd also like to point out that we had an open space survey. We are required to update, it's a Massachusetts regulation, we are required to update our open space plan for the town every 10 years. We've been working on that this spring, and we had extremely good response to a survey that we sent out asking people, do they like to walk? Do they like to bicycle in town? Are there facilities for them? One of the categories was skateboarding. We got very good response on skateboarding. We got excellent response from the entire survey. Over 500 townspeople replied, so thank you all very much if you replied to that survey. So we feel that this fits in with the town's needs, the open space plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. My name is Paul Collins. I'm a Long Meadow resident of 58 Woodland Road. I have been for my entire life. I'm a Long Meadow High School graduate. I'm also a UMass Amherst graduate. I'm going to touch upon a lot of the same points that they've already spoken on, especially the Rich family, which did a phenomenal job. So basically, I work at Theory Skate Shop. I teach a skate camp in Agawam and in Westfield. I see this as a fantastic opportunity to start building a more alternative community in Long Meadow. I grew up here. There were not many skateboarders. It was very tough for me. I had to wait until I was of driving age so I could have a place to skate after school. I would drive to Agawam, where I still frequent. It's important to note that a skate park doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be a $500,000 project. It can be small, and it can suffice. As long as there's the correct design and build, it can be a really, really great place, even in the size of a tennis court, like we had already talked about. We can also make it something beautiful and sculptural for the town. It doesn't have to be an eyesore full of graffiti and trash. What I've seen in my lifetime is that skateboarders are individuals, but collaborative, and we can maintain our own skate park with 2 trash barrels that can be picked up weekly, which I'm assuming would not be too expensive for the DPW. You could feasibly maintain the skate park for a long time. With concrete, things don't have to be maintained very frequently. That's really my main points. Skateboarders skate at their own risk. I don't think that there's huge insurance policies that come with it. But yeah, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any new information? Come forward.
Hello, Richard Pelcher, 139 Edgewood Avenue. I'm 25 years old, and I've been a resident of Long Meadow my entire life, born and raised here. Graduated from the high school, and at a young age, I played baseball, Little League at Wolf Swamp and Stropel Fields. I played soccer, but what really stuck with me for life is skateboarding. And there's a lot of parents here, but me and my friend Paul are skateboarders ourselves, and we have been for decades, at this point, almost 20 years. As a kid, until I was of driving age, the only place I had in town to practice was my driveway, my street, and around town. And I've personally, at a young age, had the police called on myself, and have been kicked out of spots, and I'm sure, that's not a hassle that anyone wants to go through, myself or you guys. And I wished and hoped that there would be a skate park in town, and I didn't get to experience that as a young age, but even today, as I drive home from work or whatever I'm doing, I still notice kids doing the same thing I was, skateboarding in the street, and it makes me proud to see the next generation coming up, and I think we should vote to at least approve this study so they can have an opportunity that myself and my peers have never had when we were younger, as a safe place to skateboard. And I would also like to add that skateboarding was going to be added to the Summer Olympics this year had it not been postponed. So it is a growing sport. There's video games, countless YouTube videos and DVDs, and a big industry behind it, and there's interest. So
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any new information? Yes, sir?
Hi, I'm Gardner Olson of 173 Farmington Road. And up until 5 minutes ago, there was 2 places that I used to BMX, but I just learned that, so Farmington is right next to Bliss, like Woods behind my house, and Laurel's right across the street. I spent countless hours with a shovel in Laurel, just digging dirt and patting it down and taking my BMX up and down that. So I was a little shocked. I didn't come up here prepared with anything. I just, 4 minutes ago, found out that one of the 2 places I would BMX is non-existent. The other place is right over there, and I've had the police call on me enough times over there that I kind of stopped doing that. So kind of having a skate park is going to be great for, skateboarders and bikers are never going to stop doing what they do. There's a reason why the police are kind of called all the time. It's because they're sort of pushed into places where the police would have to be called to stop them. But if there is a space, they're going to use the space. If there's a well-designed space, concrete is all you really need, they're going to use it. So if you don't want people like me biking up and down to your cars on that little slant over there, I'd say go for it.
Thank you. We have heard 7 in favor. Is there new information to be added? Go ahead.
Roman Jelesnikov, 307 Green Hill Road. I'm a parent of basketball and soccer players, and right now we have this COVID, and riding a bicycle, skateboarding are some of the sports that I would like my kids to engage in, because right now they're sit home. One of the things that we talked about here was the fact that when we did the taxes, that there's a lot of places that you have things like Agawam has skateboardings, we do not. That's not a way to grow our families. You're talking about some kids that were, raised here, went to school here. They had to go to other towns. And we've had this discussions last year and the year prior with soccer fields being inappropriate, with no baseball fields. And if we were to grow our town to make sure that our home values grow, we need to have places that are available for our children, for their children, and so on. And that's how.
Thank you. Mr. Weiss?
Thank you again. I'll try to be brief. I was asked a couple of procedural questions before, but I thought it would be helpful to provide some background about why the CPC did approve this application. By definition, CPC is designed for applications that would not generally get on the town's operating budget, and in fact, this $15,000 will not come out of the town's general budget, will come out of the CPC allocations. And CPC funding is totally separate. We thought that the application itself was well thought out. It was enthusiastic. We were convinced that it would be well used, and we did ask some of the questions about liability, about what it might cost. What this study is just a study to figure out things like liability, what it would cost to put a park, where it would go, what the maintenance costs would be, and then later on there may be a decision about if it's going to be funded, where it comes from, and that could be from CPC funds. Everything from the track to the tennis court, which was funded with partly with CPC funds, projects at Russell Field, at Bliss Park, at Turner Park. Those are all recreation projects that get funded out of CPC funds. So that may be the possibility where it comes from eventually. But from right now, this is just a study, and we thought just a good first step in terms of trying to figure out if a park should go in and where a park should go in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kurt Friedman, 24 Ridge Road. I'm in favor of this proposal because I think it's to the benefit of our overall community. Some of the speakers have commented that they felt this is just for a niche use in the community. I think quite the opposite. I'd like to give a challenge to all the 50 plus and 60 plus members of this community to get out onto this skateboard. Get out on that bike, put your inline skates on, whip yourself into shape, and benefit by this. The pool's closed in town. COVID is going to be around for the next couple of years. I think this is a great idea. And it might just get us into better health and maybe save some lives. Support this proposal. Thank you.
Okay, with that challenge, are we ready to vote? All right. All those in favor of the motion under Article 30, please raise your orange cards. Thank you. All those opposed, raise your orange cards. The motion passes by majority affirmative vote. All right, we turn to Article 20. Mr. Starr?
More of our consent items, hopefully. I move that items 20 and 21 of the warrant be handled in a consent agenda with reading of the individual items waived and subject to town meeting pulling either of these articles out of consent agenda for separate discussion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approving articles? I'm sorry. Is there a hold on Article 20? Yes. Okay, so we will consider Articles 20 and 21 separately. Article 20. Mr. Gold?
I move that the town vote to transfer from the ambulance fund the sum of $322,000 for the purchase and equipping of a new ambulance.
Is there a second?
Second.
You may speak to it, Mr. Gold.
This appropriation will allow the town to order a new ambulance and stretcher system in a timely manner, as there is about a 6-month lead time before the actual delivery is made and the ambulance placed in service. The new ambulance will replace Medic 3, a 2005 medium-duty ambulance with over 131,000 miles and over 20,400 hours of service. Comparatively, Medic 1 has just over 2,600 hours of service, and Medic 2 has just over 8,300 hours of service. Both Medic 1 and Medic 2 have heavy-duty chassis. This will allow the fire department to enhance its ambulance service and reduce the town's reliance on third-party providers. Additional grant opportunities will be sought to equip the ambulance, thus supplementing the final cost of fully equipping. The appropriation will strengthen the application.
Thank you. Finance Committee recommendation, Mr. Garrett?
Finance Committee recommends Article 20, and in the interest of brevity, I will add that the ambulance is revenue positive. The ambulance makes money, and that was one of the strongest considerations that the Finance Committee dealt with our deliberations on the article.
Okay, at the red mic first, and we'll proceed down the line.
Brian David Crawford, 5 Eunice Drive. This is part of that difficult conversation we need to have about spending money. I know we're making money on this, so why do we have to have a reliance on third-party providers for ambulances? At the end of the day, do we need 3 ambulances in this town? I know some people probably think we do. Some people think we don't. But if we're going to have this conversation and say we don't want to raise our taxes, we just cannot blindly spend $322,000. That is 1 year of full-day kindergarten for this town. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Colonel Friedson, 9 Green Willow Drive. Okay, so you've heard me come down on a couple of things about how we're spending money, you need to do it better, get more creative, and so forth. Well, this is a place we can do that, and I'm going to offer a motion at the end of this.
Mr. Friedson, you can make the motion now, and then you can speak to it.
Okay, can I do it the way I want?
No.
Okay, then my motion is going to be one line, that the town prioritize the effort for the replacement ambulance to used equipment.
Okay, so you're offering an amendment.
Yes.
The amendment has to be in writing. Can you write that down, please?
I can. Give me just a moment.
Sure. You need a piece of paper?
No, I've got the perfect piece of paper right here.
Okay. He's got to finish making his amendment anyways. He's not done making his amendment. We're waiting. So the motion would be, I move that the town vote to transfer from ambulance fund the sum of $322,000 for the purchase and equipment of new ambulance, and the town should prioritize replacement of ambulance to used equipment. Is there a second? Seeing no second, the amendment fails. Okay, and then we'll have the green microphone. Mr. Starr.
Thank you. Larry Starr, 81 Williamsburg. Some of you may remember I was one of the driving forces to bringing the ambulance to this town. We did not have ambulance service in the town. We had given it up by the police department because it was inappropriate for the police to be doing it. We've recognized that nationally. And I have been in EMS since I was in college, starting the first student-run ambulance corps in the country. We promised we would bring the ambulance back to the town. We raised the money independently. We also promised the town that it would not cost the town money. That's been mentioned. This ambulance produces revenue. The service calls that it goes out on are paid for by insurance companies. Thankfully, if there's someone who's not insured, they don't pay for it. But we raise more money than we need to run the ambulance. That money comes back to support the fire department. The hope is, I believe, that at some point, 50% of the budget of the fire department will be paid for by the ambulance operation. In order to continue to do that, we need to have the most current equipment. The third ambulance, and I can't believe that these ambulances have been around so long. This was a labor of love for those of us who brought it to the town based on the death of a young boy. I cannot believe that it's that old, but it is. It has a tremendous amount of mileage, and it needs to be replaced. We do it methodically, we investigate, and we buy the right equipment. Used equipment is very little value to any current fire department. This does not cost us money. This makes money, it will continue to make money, and clearly we need to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Question, and then we'll go to the opposition.
Yeah, this is Mark Gold at 129 Avondale Road. It's not a question, it's clarification. Earlier comment said that we can't continue to spend money on things like this. I want people to understand this ambulance is being paid for out of revenue that's generated by our ambulance services.
Mr. Gold, this is for questions.
Okay.
Clarifications can be made separately. Thank you.
Colonel Friedson, 9 Greenville. All right.
Mr. Friedson.
So, first thing, I have a little personal experience with this, having commanded a medical troop in the military with both wheeled and tracked ambulances. Secondly, as far as the value of used equipment, well, we've got some pretty used equipment that's been turning over some pretty good service, or it wouldn't have gotten 133,000 miles on it. Third, it's terrific that it pays for itself, but every dollar we don't spend on this can be spent on something else. So it's not whether it pays for itself, it's whether or not those dollars can be made reasonably available if we can save money on the purchase. Now, ambulances depreciate quickly. You think your car depreciates quickly? Ambulances and that type of equipment depreciates far more quickly. Let me give you some examples. First, I'm going to restrict this to the type of equipment that we use. We use Ford F-550s. And as a former troop commander, I understand commonality of equipment and commonality for training and all the right reasons you stay with the same stuff if you possibly can. So on the couple of Ford F-550s used ambulances that I have found, one example would be a 2012 with 37,000 miles on it for $277,000. Now that's a lot of money, but that's about $150,000 savings if we could just live with the 2016. If we wanted to look for something a little older but still lightly used, a 2012 ambulance with about 11,000 miles on it would run about $50,000. That's an absolutely enormous saving. Now, I drive a nice car, but it also was made in 2012 and I bought it used. This is my point where the town needs to start thinking differently if we don't want to cross that fiscal cliff. And that's why I was trying to offer an amendment that would at least have us examine good condition, used equipment that can serve our needs. I want a working ambulance. I guarantee you my cardiologist wants me to have a working ambulance. That doesn't mean we absolutely have to go buy something new for the absolute highest price when good working equipment of the type that we use is available.
Thank you.
Now, I'd like to be permitted after that to just try to offer my amendment one more time.
Well, we have two speakers over there, and you're out of time, so we'll go ahead. Mr. Metz, go ahead.
Thank you. Stephen Metz, 171 Coventry Lane. I'm chair of the Capital Planning Committee and also a doctor, so I'm coming from, and a patient. Capital planning, these ambulances technology improves year by year. So what was current 5 years ago is way out of style right now. I'd also like to echo what's been said before. The ambulance fund is a self-generating fund. It's ongoing every year with the idea that the ambulances can be replaced on a regular basis. And this is ambulances time for them to replace. These things get beat to heck in their travel. They have to be traveling both in summer and in winter, ice and snow, and they do take a lot of damage. So buying a used one is just really a poor option. So for that reason, all those reasons, I think we ought to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Hold on one second.
Kurt Friedman, 24 Ridge. Sometimes issues go beyond simple finance. Although I'm generally a healthy person, when the pools are open, I swim every day. Now I'm bicycling every day. But I have a certain physical issue. And it was 8 years ago, about 8.5 years ago, I had to call 911. The Long Meadow ambulances came. They serviced my issues. Obviously, I'm standing here because they did a good job. And I don't want to have to worry about whether we have an ambulance that's suitable for service or an ambulance that we save money on. When you call 911 and you're literally gasping for air, you don't want to have to worry about the mechanics of the ambulance that's coming to help save your life. This is not an area to save money, and this program apparently is cost justified. I think it's a great deal for this town. I support this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're ready to come to a vote. All those in favor, this requires a simple majority. All those in favor of the motion under Article 20, raise your cards. Thank you. All opposed, raise your cards. Thank you. The motion passes, majority affirmative vote. Article 21.
I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $180,025 for the purposes of paying the FY 2021 District Improvement Financing debt service.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded. You may speak to it, Mr. Gold.
The District Improving Financing Statute, Mass General Law, Chapter 40Q, requires the town to annually budget for the debt service related to the Dwight Road, Maple Street DIF program. In fiscal year 2021, 90% of the incremental property tax revenues associated with the town's Dwight Road Improvement District will be used as the funding source of the DIF fund. Any excess in the DIF fund at fiscal year end will return to the general fund. An estimated $35,000 in excess taxes and other DIF allotments will flow directly to the general fund in FY '21.
Thank you. Finance Committee recommendation, Mr. Garrett?
Finance Committee recommends Article 21.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll come directly to a vote. This requires a simple majority. All those in favor of the motion under Article 21, raise your cards. Thank you. All opposed, raise your cards. Thank you. The motion passes, majority affirmative vote. Article 22.
I move the town vote to appropriate 40.
I'm sorry, Mr. Starr was at the mic,
Okay.
seeking recognition under Article 22.
You'll get your chance. I move that items 22 and 23 of the warrant be handled in the consent agenda with reading of the individual items waived and subject to town meeting, pulling any of these articles out of the consent agenda for separate discussion. These items will require a 2/3 positive vote for passage by town meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, if I call, I'm going to call out Article 22. Any holds? Article 23. Any holds? Then we shall come to a vote on Articles 22 and 23 as part of a consent agenda. The motion requires 2/3 a vote. All those in favor of the motion on Articles 22 and 23, raise your cards. Thank you. All opposed, raise your cards. Thank you. The motion passes, majority declaration, 2/3 majority. Mr. Strange?
Consent Agenda 2 will consider Articles 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, and 29 in a grouping, unless town meeting decides to pull an article out of the consent agenda for separate discussion. I move to approve Articles 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, and 29 as part of a consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. After I call out each number, call out hold if you'd like to consider an article under separate consideration. 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. Then we'll come directly to a vote on those articles. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your cards. Thank you. All those opposed, raise your cards. Thank you. The motion passes, majority affirmative vote. Mr. Starr?
I move that items 31 and 32 of the warrant be handled in a consent agenda with reading of the individual items waived and subject to town meeting pulling any of these articles out of consent agenda for separate discussion.
This is Articles 31 and 32. Is there a second?
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded. If I call out the number, yell out hold if you want to consider them separately. 31, 32. Then we shall come directly to a vote on the motion under Articles 31 and 32 as part of a consent agenda. All those in favor, please raise your orange cards. Thank you. All those opposed, raise your orange cards. Thank you. The motion passes, majority affirmative vote. Mr. Starr?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. This is the last one, and I want to thank everybody for putting up with us. I move that items 33, 34, and 35 of the warrant be handled in a consent agenda with reading of the individual items waived and subject to town meeting pulling of any of these articles out of the consent agenda for separate discussion. These items all require a 2/3 positive vote for passage by town meeting.
Is there a second? Motion's been made and seconded. Any holds for 33, 34, 35? Then we shall come directly to a vote on the consent agenda motion for Articles 33, 34, and 35. All those in favor, please raise your orange cards. Thank you. All those opposed, raise your orange cards. Thank you. The motion passes by 2/3 declaration affirmative vote. Okay, just a reminder that we are getting close to the end. And once we do reach the end, there will be a staggered dismissal. So just a heads up on that. Article 36. Mr. Friedman? Oh, here he comes. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Friedman.
Residents of Long Meadow. I move to take no action on Article 36.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, you may speak to it, Mr. Friedman.
The reason for taking no action is that Article 37 was actually a revision of Article 36. Article 36 contains items which needed to be upgraded or improved. So Article 37 will sometime in the future be heard, and I'll talk to that in the future. So Article 36 simply is has information which is not up to date.
Thank you. Any further discussion on taking no action under Article 36? Seeing none, that motion requires a simple majority. All those in favor of taking no action on Article 36, raise your orange cards. Thank you. All those opposed, raise your orange cards. A unanimous vote. Affirmative to take no action. Mr. Friedman, Article 37.
Yes, I move to refer to the planning board, and we're looking to have this article brought back at the next town meeting in November.
I'm sorry, the next town meeting?
Yes, I move to that
Do we have
this
a town
matter.
meeting in November? It's in October. So do you want to say that the next town meeting?
The next
or-
town meeting, is it October?
oh,
Okay,
It may be October.
okay.
So,
I move that this be taken up at the next town meeting,
So
whenever that might be.
the
scheduled.
motion is to refer the article to the planning board to be brought back to the next town meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. This requires a simple majority. Do you want to speak to this, Mr. Friedman?
Yes, due to the difficulties of giving what is actually a fairly technical presentation, and due to the limitations of overhead projection and images, it was felt that it just would be too difficult to hear this article at this meeting, due to the complexities of scheduling a meeting outdoors.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll come directly to a vote. This requires a simple majority. All those in favor of the motion to refer to the planning board and having this brought back at the next town meeting, raise your orange cards. Thank you. All those opposed? Thank you. Passes by unanimous affirmative vote. And another reminder, we're getting close to the end. Please don't all leave at once. Article 38. Is the citizen petitioner here for that? It's not in order yet. Is anyone making a motion under Article 38? See, if there is no motion, the article dies. The difficulty with this, however, is that the citizen petitioner had made an agreement with the select board that the article would be moved, just as Mr. Friedman did, to refer to the select board for the next town meeting to be handled. If that motion is not made, that action cannot occur. So if somebody would,
Of course it can. Here's someone.
thank you.
The select board can do that.
Well, the select board needs to make that motion and make sure it happens.
Put it on the.
Motion to refer Article 38 to the next town meeting? Is that correct?
To the select board for the next town
To the
meeting?
select board for the next town meeting.
It's Michael Back, right?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of moving Article 38 to the select board for the next town meeting, raise your orange cards. Thank you. All those opposed, raise your orange cards. Thank you. That passes by majority affirmative vote. Congratulations, folks. Now, I shall accept a motion to dissolve the special town meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor of dissolving the 2020 annual town meeting, raise your orange cards. Thank you. All those opposed? The motion passes, majority affirmative vote. Now, I declare the 2020 annual town meeting dissolved. Thank you so much.